The Defense Department today released stunning, newly declassified video showing the first known physical conflict between the U.S. and Russian forces since the war in Ukraine began more than a year ago now. This video showing the mid-air clash between a Russian fighter jet and a military Reaper drone. You can see what the U.S. says is fuel being poured onto the unmanned drone by an Su-27 Russian fighter jet. The pilot then returns to drop even more fuel. He collides with the drone's rear propeller, temporarily cutting off the camera feed, so you don't see the actual collision. But when it returns, you can see that the propeller then is clearly damaged. The U.S. military then had to bring the drone down into the Black Sea, officials saying there were efforts to erase all of its sensitive data first. 3 U.S. officials telling NBC News now that the highest levels of the Kremlin approved the aggressive actions over the Black Sea. And joining me now is NBC News Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kube, along with Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Obama. And Courtney, it was you and Carol Lee, our team, who reported that the Kremlin at the highest levels had approved this aggressive maneuver. And there have been a number of aggressive maneuvers, according to John Kirby, near intercepts, near collisions. So what's going on there? And when you say high level, are we talking about Vladimir Putin?
So that's the exact question we were asking, is does it go as high as Vladimir Putin? And the officials we spoke with were clear to say that it's the highest levels of leadership without specifying it goes to Vladimir Putin. Now, of course, it seems that something that's going to happen at high levels of government in the Kremlin, it'd be difficult for him not to know about it. But the reality is, Andrea, we just don't know whether he was informed. What we do know is there were civilian leaders, so not just military, Russian military leaders, but Russian civilian leaders who approved of this aggressive maneuvering. Now, this included weaving in front of this drone, this MQ-9 Reaper drone, at very close distances. And then, as we see in the video, they're dropping fuel, which to viewers, it might be a little surprising what that looks like. At that altitude, it kind of looks like a vapor or a cloud, as opposed to, you know, what we would think of as maybe jet fuel, of a liquid. But dropping the fuel on it, the officials who we spoke with said they aren't really sure what the intent of that fuel drop was. But the reality is it seems plausible that it was to disable or the drone or throw it off course. Now, as we know, because of the erratic piloting by those Russian military pilots, because of that, one of them clipped that Reaper drone, damaging the propeller. The propeller, because of that, it lost its propulsion, and the U.S. had to down it in the Black Sea. So the U.S., we've known about this incident now for about 48 hours. We just now got this video. A number of officials who I spoke with said that part of the reason that they put the video out today is because they want to show that the U.S. narrative here is the correct one, not the Russian narrative. The Russians, of course, saying that there was never any contact between the two aircraft, and they are denying that there was any kind of aggressive action on the part of those Russian pilots.
And do we know, Courtney, the result of the call that did take place between the Secretary of Defense, rather, of course, and his Russian counterpart, General Shoigu?
So we know that it happened, but, you and I are used to getting readouts of these calls, and I will say that this is a sort of a new level of no information on a readout of a call. We really know nothing other than they spoke. We also know that General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, spoke with his Russian counterpart, General Gerasimov, later in the day yesterday. Again, we have almost no information about what they discussed, but officials here are acknowledging that, of course, they discussed this incident over the Black Sea. We just don't know exactly what the tone of that conversation was, Andrea.
And hang on, I want to bring in Ben Rhodes, of course, the former Deputy National Security Advisor with Barack Obama. Well, you've dealt with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin had made every wrong bet in this war, but has the advantage of time on his side if he can outweigh Ukraine in terms of just manpower and a war of attrition. But now all this direct confrontation with the U.S.
Well, I think, look, Vladimir Putin's view is the Black Sea is kind of our sphere of influence. It's our space. To be clear, this was international airspace, international waters, but the Russian view is kind of stay out of our neighborhood. And I think what's been happening here, Andrea, is a pattern of these kinds of close calls. And we've seen the Russians kind of push the envelope in a number of places over the years in terms of close calls between our aircraft. Here, they know it was an unmanned aircraft, and they're trying to send a message. And they're trying to kind of back us off. They're trying to make life more difficult for us. They may be trying to kind of learn something or recover sensitive information from a drone. And so the administration is trying to get ahead out of that. And the Russian narrative will be that it's the U.S. that's the aggressor here. Why are they sending drones into this space like this? And I think putting this out is a message to the world. The audience here is the global audience to say, look, it's the Russians once again who are being the aggressor in a military escalation. And
one of the other issues here is what they can retrieve. They have assets there. They have a Navy there. We don't. We stay out of that space. This is what General Milley said about any ability to recover it.
We know where it landed in the Black Sea. It's probably about maybe 4,000 or 5,000 feet of water, something like that. So any recovery operation is very difficult at that depth. It probably broke up. There's probably not a lot to recover, frankly.
What's also intriguing is that what the Russians put out was that the drone was approaching their border. Well, they mean the Crimean Peninsula, which we don't recognize as Russian. It is Russian-controlled, but we say it's part of Ukraine. So
that's exactly right, and that's part of what's going on here. Again, this is like the Russians believe or say, Crimea is their territory, the Black Sea is kind of their real estate. Stay out of our neighborhood. I think that's the main message of these kinds of encounters, probably more so than whatever they could try to get from recovering a drone that, again, as General Milley said, is probably broken up and not of much use to them. But I think the broader concern, to pull back, Andrew, is that there's a lot of places out there where the U.S. and Russian military, U.S. and Russian aircraft, U.S. and Russian naval vessels may be in proximity. There's risks of these incidents escalating unintentionally, particularly if it's a manned aircraft, right? And part of the reason that you have this kind of hotline and this communication from Lloyd Austin and General Milley to their Russian counterparts is to kind of manage that escalation risk and probably to deliver a message, we're not going to get out of this airspace. We are going to keep doing this. We have every right to fly planes in international airspace and to deliver that message as well, that this isn't going to work as a strategy.
And we've got about a minute, but I just want to ask you, because you have such deep experience, what's happening in Israel? Because today, Prime Minister Netanyahu has rejected a compromise offered by the president of Israel, President Herzog, to try to come up with a solution to all of these protests, enormous protests, the military protesting, which is unheard of, former Mossad, former Shin Bet, all against the Netanyahu hardliner coalition attempts to take away the legitimacy and the independence of the Supreme Court and the other judiciary, which would change Israel as a democracy.
I think it's an incredibly perilous and potentially transformative moment for Israeli democracy, where you have a very extremist coalition trying to ram through something that clearly a majority of Israelis do not want. There have been hundreds of thousands of people in the street. You've had the establishment of military lawyers all standing up against this. If over those objections they essentially defang the Supreme Court, we're in new waters in terms of the nature of Israel's democracy.